Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Giants, dragons, and savage monsters are plentiful in world mythology. Their beastly nature and supernatural abilities make them inherently dangerous, and their immense sizes make them difficult to miss. But perhaps just as dangerous as a gigantic creature with malicious intent, and in some ways more frightening, is a smaller creature with a mischievous or sinister nature. One that may not be so easily noticed, and has to rely on tricks, craftiness, and cunning, rather than brute force alone. Myth and legend has many examples of these creatures as well, but few are as widely recognized as goblins. The term goblin, originating from the Anglo-Norman word goblin, has been utilized as an umbrella term, a catch-all name for any number of dark and sinister creatures of legend, but in recent years has gone on to describe a particular diminutive creature with pointed ears, a bizarre-shaped nose, and an overall grotesque and gangly appearance, one that mirrors their malicious nature, driven solely by greed and selfishness, and a desire to inflict harm upon others. The degree of their cruelty also varies from tale to tale, ranging from harassment and pranks upon the unsuspecting, such as making loud noises, stealing clothes off of sleeping people, and breaking into houses and moving furniture about, to committing acts of pure evil, such as stealing money, jewelry, and livestock, poisoning water supplies, kidnapping children, attacking strangers, and even murdering people. While their small size may limit them to a degree in terms of hand-to-hand combat and general confrontation, they made up for it with their speed, their craftiness, and cunning, and may even occasionally raid in groups, making them quite dangerous adversaries. They were also at times granted magical powers, namely those that are congruent with trickster figures of folklore, such as shapeshifting, disappearing, or turning milk sour with a laugh, only adding to their mysterious nature and their dangerous presence. Goblins have appeared in stories of European folklore since the Middle Ages, acting almost exclusively as antagonists. Greek legend tells of the Kalakanzaros, malicious nocturnal fiends who terrorize the world for a handful of days each winter. English folklore tells of the Redcap, who would haunt ruined castles and battlefields found along the border between England and Scotland, where they would murder travelers who strayed into their homes, and would then dye their hats in their victims' blood, hence the name Redcap. A Celtic variation known as the Hobgoblin was considered a friendly trickster figure prior to the rise of Christianity, after which the Hobgoblin became just another supernatural menace to humanity. The Trasgu of Iberian folklore was a goblin with a poltergeist-like quality to them, entering houses by night and destroying dishes and furniture with glee. Germanic folklore had the Earl King, or Earl Konig, a goblin-like figure influenced by the dark elves of Norse mythology, who would lure people, namely children, to their doom. Grimm Fairy Tales often feature goblins as enemies or otherwise untrustworthy figures. Even the famous Rumpelstiltskin can be considered a goblin. Goblin-like creatures are not limited to just European folklore, and similar figures appear across the world, even if they are not directly referred to as goblins, including the Tokoloshi of Zulu mythology, the Dokebi of Korean mythology, the Pukwudgies of Wampanoag mythology, and even the Ifrit variant of Jinn in Arabian folklore. Goblins of European origin, like many monsters and demons that are humanoid in appearance, often symbolize the evils of mankind and the world as a whole, and sometimes represent the perceived dangers of foreign or unfamiliar people. In the case of goblins, it is likely their traits came as a result of anti-Semitism, prejudice against the Jewish peoples. The hideous appearance of a skulking creature with large eyes and a bizarre, often hooked nose eerily aligns with stereotypical anti-Semitic caricatures, and the recurring traits of goblins being insatiably greedy, cunning yet cowardly, settling into a home not their own, and committing vile acts of stealing goods, poisoning water, kidnapping children and killing them, are the exact same bigoted accusations that had been made against the Jewish community since the medieval period of European history. As a result, goblins of mythology are in many ways symbols of hate, bigotry, and prejudice. Despite their problematic history and prejudicial origins, goblins have gone on to become regular fixtures in modern fiction, often appearing as antagonists and tricksters in fantasy and horror stories. They appear in written works by William Shakespeare, Hans Christian Andersen, and J.R.R. Tolkien. They appear in fantasy films such as Jim Henson's Labyrinth and Disney's The Black Cauldron. They appear as frequent recurring enemies in the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing games, and their likeness is seen in Marvel Comics as the Green Goblin, the archenemy of Spider-Man. Though the goblins of myth and legend were spawned from a place of hate, anti-Semitism, and xenophobia, it would seem that, as long as there is fiction, for better or worse, the goblin will always be present in some form or another. But it is up to artists, creators, and society as a whole to discard the harmful tropes that have followed them for many centuries.